I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Do you remember Pete Buttigieg ran for president? He's supposedly gay.
That was a very hurtful and unsupportive thing to say. And I don't think hurtful and unsupportive things are funny.
Biden's brain is officially cooked. Tucker Carlson floats a wild theory, and an actress apologizes for doing her job. All this and so much more is coming up on today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my daily podcast where I take on the craziest ideas from across our politics and across the internet, all from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, consider subscribing and sticking around. We don't bite, we're building a great community here. And if you're a returning viewer, you know what I'm going to say. Don't forget to hit that like button as we go along, and do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments, and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Now up first, if you've been following the President of the United States lately, you'll know that he's been in full damage control mode because he gave recently one of the worst, cringiest, and most pitiful, honestly, presidential debate performances of all time. Well, he just gave a big press conference at a NATO summit where this was supposed to reassure Americans that he's not too old to have the nuclear codes, he's not got dementia, he's not a vegetable, all of that, everything you saw with your own eyes on the debate stage, all that stuff was just totally, a one-time thing or something. Well, this press conference did not achieve that intended goal, and he made 3 glaring gaffes just in the pretty short, unscripted portion of this press conference. Up first, Biden misidentified the president of Ukraine right in front of him.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
So, at least for this mistake, he caught himself and corrected it. And word slippages like this, they can happen to anybody when they're speaking publicly. So if this was the only thing that happened during the press conference, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But it wasn't. He also misidentified his own vice president.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one.
And when Biden was asked by reporters about that mix-up, his response wasn't super coherent or reassuring.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody.
I mean, was that supposed to make us feel better? A one-sentence total non sequitur and then ending the press conference and storming off stage, while not addressing at all the fact in that in the span of like half an hour, you misidentified a foreign leader and your own vice president. Oh, and apparently yourself?
I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people.
So, of course, he is the commander-in-chief, or at least he's supposed to be. Like I said, any one of these mix-ups on its own isn't so bad, but 3 in the span of like half an hour at a press conference where you're supposed to be reassuring us that you're not in cognitive decline after a disastrous mumbling debate performance, well, it kind of has the opposite effect. It kind of confirms for us what most of us have known for some time, that President Biden is in a state of severe cognitive decline. And seeing as he's literally the person with the nuclear codes responsible for our national security, that's pretty concerning, folks. Now, we finally have some of the mainstream media coming along, like the New York Times has come out and told Biden he needs to step back. But it's now becoming obvious how long and how actively they colluded with and misled the public to cover up Biden's decline. Those of us in right-of-center media have known it. We've been new, right? We've been pointing this out, but they said it was cheap fakes and right-wing misinformation and all that nonsense. And now we're learning about the media literally editing out Biden's mistakes from their interviews rather than sharing them with the public. As Mediaite reports, a radio station just admitted editing Biden's interview at his campaign's request, including his boast about, quote, blacks in my administration. Nothing to see here. Totally normal, standard practice journalisming. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel published a devastating report on Thursday detailing a local radio station's acknowledgement that it agreed to edit an interview with President Joe Biden conducted after his disastrous debate with Donald Trump. Not only did they edit it, they also received questions from the campaign before the interview, which is not how that's supposed to work, guys. Civic Media released a statement saying it also edited the interview, which was taped on July 3rd and aired on the 4th. On Monday, July 8th, it was reported to Civic Media management that immediately after the phone interview was recorded, the Biden campaign called and asked for 2 edits to the recording before it aired. Civic Media management immediately undertook an investigation and determined that the production team at the time viewed the edits as non-substantive and broadcast and published the interview with 2 short segments removed, the station said. Well, you can decide for yourself if these were really just complete nothing burgers or totally non-substantive moments that were removed. Take a listen.
In addition to that, I have more blacks in my administration than any other president, all of the presidents combined, and major positions, cabinet positions. I don't know if they even call for their hanging or not, but they said they're convicted of murder.
To be clear for you guys, those have been spliced together. They did not immediately follow one after the other, but those are the 2 rambling sentences that were cut out. Neither of the things that were cut out are like devastating and terrible that he said or glaring total signs of cognitive decline, but they're both sloppy and kind of incoherently worded. Journalists are supposed to be scrutinizing the people in power, not doing PR for them. The next time you're wondering why no one trusts the mainstream media, just remember the bizarre, dishonest, and openly partisan way they've handled all the issues surrounding President Biden. But independent media doesn't always get things right either. And up next, we've got to talk about Tucker Carlson, who, the former Fox News host since he went independent and launched his own network, the Tucker Carlson Network, has taken a strange turn. Most recently, suggesting an odd conspiracy theory that Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, who is openly gay, isn't actually gay, and it's a big fake conspiracy or something. Take a listen to what Tucker had to say in a recent episode.
Do you remember Pete Buttigieg ran for president? He's supposedly gay, and now he's transportation secretary. And I had one of my producers is gay, and he goes, he's not gay. I was like, are you serious? He goes, no, that's complete bullshit.
Wow.
Oh, no. He goes, and they all gays all keep very close track of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And my producer's like, no, it's totally a pose. He was dating women just a few years ago. That's totally fake. Wow. He's not gay at all.
Smart.
So I said that on the air. People got all offended. I thought it was kind of hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
It is hilarious.
Yes.
And you're also like, I'm not against gays. I'm saying he's not one.
Well, that's what I said.
So while I wasn't offended by this in any real way, even as a gay person, as a journalist, I did find it really irresponsible. Yes, he's an opinion host, but he still has massive influence and reach, and he shouldn't be spreading serious allegations based on nothing more than conjecture and gossip. After all, there is zero evidence that Pete Buttigieg is faking being gay. One producer's gossip and hunch isn't evidence anywhere near the kind of substantiation you should need before making a really serious charge about somebody. Not that he's not gay, that he's a fraud, that he's been lying for years and built his entire public persona and career on a lie. That's a serious claim that requires serious evidence, none of which Tucker provided. I mean, Buttigieg is married to a man, and has been married since 2018. They have children together. He came out nearly a decade ago, back in 2015. If this is some grand conspiracy to bolster his career through identity politics or something, he's really committed to the bit. Guys, if he was just faking being gay, you'd think he'd say he was gay and maybe have a boyfriend or something, but you wouldn't need to go with the wedding and have kids and do all that to just get the identity politics points. You wouldn't need to go that far. Now, it is true that Buttigieg did not come out of the closet as gay until age 37, but the most likely explanation for that is that he was an elected official in deep red Indiana and just didn't feel comfortable being out of the closet. For context, I know it seems increasingly these days like nobody cares if people are gay, and that's true in a lot of places and in a lot of cases, but it's not true everywhere and across the board, and it certainly wasn't a decade ago. Even as early as the 2010s, it would have been really difficult to be out and gay in many parts of deep red, heavily Christian Indiana, let alone to win elections as an elected official in those parts while being gay. I mean, it's certainly possible that is actually just because the reason he came out at 37 is because it's part of some conspiracy or something. That is possible, I guess. But again, the seriousness of that allegation demands serious evidence, not conjecture and gossip. For years, Carlson and folks like him have often quite rightly criticized establishment media and liberal journalists for spreading accusations about Republicans or false narratives with little basis or that are totally unsubstantiated at all. But here he is doing the same exact thing to a Democrat, and it's not the first time. Tucker also did a whole interview with a man who claimed to have had sex with Barack Obama and declared that it is obviously true that Obama is actually a closeted gay man. But he omitted from his coverage the fact that the individual making this accusation that dates back to 1999 failed a lie detector test and had a long criminal record, including charges related to fraud and deceit. Tucker seems to have a weird soft spot for baseless conspiracy theories about Democratic politicians' sexuality. But in spreading these kinds of baseless claims, he's becoming everything he hated about mainstream media and doing his audience a massive disservice. That's just my take. Let me know if you disagree, if you're a fan of Tucker. I want to hear from you in the comments below. And now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slug slugs.
Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the like button as we go along to reward my suffering, where I go through torture, I lose brain cells, all for your entertainment pleasure. Now today, we've got a video from a woke actress explaining to TikTok how deeply sorry she is for ever having read a joke from a script? For context, guys, this woman is named Kim Rhodes, and she played the mom on the Disney show The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, that featured those two twins. It was on when I was growing up, and here she is basically apologizing for jokes she read from the script, doing her job as an actor at the time.
Hi, it's Mom. I want to say something about this.
Zack, why are you wearing a skirt? I did it so we could win money for bikes. Oh, thank goodness.
So between the time we shot that and now, I have learned. And one of the things I've learned is that was a very hurtful and unsupportive thing to say. And I don't think hurtful and unsupportive things are funny.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I think you are perfect. And I am proud of you for wearing whatever most makes you feel that way.
Okay, so when I first saw this video, I honestly rolled my eyes the hardest I think I have ever done in my life. From the very beginning, hi, it's Mom. What? Why are you addressing people in the second person? You're not our mom. This feels creepy. This feels parasocial. And then how is this random joke from like 2006 or whatever very hurtful? The joke was that, oh, she's glad he's not cross-dressing as a very young child. Yeah, I think most parents would feel that way. Doesn't mean they hate trans people or gay people or whatever she's implying here. It's actually pretty normal and rational that I think parents would be nervous and stressed by the idea that their child had deep gender confusion at an early age. Like, that's not something they would be happy to discover. And yeah, it might be kind of a relief if it was not the case. I don't think that's crazy or hateful. And regardless, it's just a fucking joke. It's one line in a script. Anyone who was harmed by that or still remembers it all these years later, that's a them problem. They lack the emotional resilience of an adult. They should seek therapy. And hurtful things can absolutely be funny. Not that this was even a hurtful thing, but even if it was, some of the funniest comedy I've ever listened to is about the darkest and most disturbing and most tragic aspects of the human experience. The idea that cross-dressing kids as a little joke is off limits is weird and bizarre, because literally everything should be on limits in terms of comedy, and you're just a buzzkill and a woke scold if you insist otherwise. And why is she even apologizing in the first place? She did nothing wrong. She didn't write the script. She was an actress. She read the words some director or producer or whatever wrote and did her job. Even if there was some offensive thing in this clip, which there isn't, it wouldn't be her fault. She literally was an actor, not the writer of the show. I'm so sick of people, and it's an absolute epidemic on TikTok, apologizing for things when there's no need to apologize. They've done nothing wrong. It's like they're just trying to flagellate themselves in front of the woke mob to hope that they get passed over and that they don't get canceled and ruined, and that they can preemptively get things out of the way and just avoid the consequences and the backlash by acting like this woke white savior. It's so insufferable and condescending, frankly. And of course, I'm fine with people wearing whatever they want. If a boy wants to wear a skirt, if a man wants to wear feminine clothing or makeup or whatever, it's no skin off my back. I have no problem with it whatsoever. But it's also not something they should be super duper proud of, or that I would be proud of them for. Like, no, it's just neutral. It's just whatever. It's just not a big deal. And we've got to stop with this rhetoric that you see all the time on TikTok of, you are so amazing and special and perfect just for being you. Actually, no, babe. A lot of y'all aren't perfect. A lot of y'all are kind of f***ed up. And telling people they're perfect when they're not, I mean, no one is sapping them of the motivation and need and desire to improve themselves and to work on their stuff and get better and try to strive for progress, which is what we should be encouraging. Not telling people to be proud of themselves for irrelevant things that are morally and ethically neutral, and then insisting they're perfect, special little flowers the way they are. Like, you might actually not be. Especially if you're on TikTok. The audience there's lots of great folks on there, but there's a lot of people there who could use some self-improvement and have things going on in their life that are suboptimal for them, shall we say. So all in all, I hated this video so much. I had to see it, so do you guys, right? To share the suffering. It's insufferable. It's pathetic pandering. It's everything cringe about woke actors and Hollywood at their very worst, with a nice little bit of Gen Z, Gen Alpha fragility, every kid gets a trophy mindset thrown in to boot. What's not to love? You guys let me know what you thought of that video in the comments below. I'll leave it there for now before I incur permanent brain damage from this hellscape of an app. And now we'll round out today's show with reading a few of your comments you left on the last episode. One person says, I'm a woman and I find the Kamala cackle annoying AF. That's probably just my internalized misogyny though. Yes, if you think her cackling like a hyena is kind of annoying, you are a deeply evil sexist. Not at all, just somebody with ears. Another person writes, Mr. Beast's statement reads, as I like things that are good and I don't like things that are bad. Yeah, I low-key do think that's basically what it was. And that's what I found kind of frustrating about it. Not that it was like wrong or he's evil or anything like that, just that it was so simplistic and naive, and that if you're not really prepared to engage in the complicated political discourse that actually is relevant, maybe just don't at all. Another person writes, is it your assumption that literally power will corrupt everyone and thus there's no actual human being capable of actually being truly impartial? I mean, yes, kind of. I believe that absolute power corrupts absolutely, 100%. And that's why power needs to be divided between different branches of government that are competing with each other. And you need checks and balances and strict constraints on people's power. I mean, the story of human history is littered with tragedies that all start when somebody with, in their mind, the best of intentions amasses vast amounts of power over people and then abuses it horrifically. So, yeah. Pretty much. Another person writes, at this point, there's no way The View's goal isn't rage bait. Their statements invariably range between absurdity and cringe, but never go into the territory of meaningful discussion. You know, I'll give them a little bit of credit, that their show's not as bad as the clips would make it seem, because only the worst parts of it get clipped and go viral and get discussed on YouTube and elsewhere. But yeah, generally speaking, the quality of discourse on there, especially since Meghan McCain left, and they were just horrible to her, even though she's a pretty moderate milquetoast Republican, especially since then. She actually brought, an argument and different ideas on, especially since then. The quality and the bad faith argumentation and everything is just absolutely plummeted. But somehow millions of people still watch that show. I genuinely don't get it. Another person writes, I don't think non-political YouTubers should get into politics. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, everyone has a right to an opinion. Everyone has a right to vote. But I would just think that you should try to, at least, if you're going to get into politics, at least just make sure you know what you're talking about first. Don't just pop off on things you know not very much about. And I think that's just a good rule of thumb for life. Another person writes, glad this wasn't my first time watching you. So not interesting in any segment today. Couldn't care less about Kamala's cackle. The woman with the nose ring was annoying, I'll grant you, but otherwise it was just, Brad is judgmental today. Maybe that's what I should have named my podcast. Brad is judgmental. All right, well, your criticism is taken. I just have to do my best to find stuff that's going on every day that I feel equipped and prepared to talk about. And I'm not always going to have, the most fascinating stuff in the world to discuss, but all I can do is do my best. And thanks for watching regardless. All right, everybody, that is it for today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Hit that like button, yada, yada, yada. And if you're listening on audio podcast, please do take a second to rate and review us on Apple or Spotify. It really does help. And with that, we'll talk again on Monday.